Took a picture and wrote the caption on the bottom of the meme. Hard drive crash. I was but a little boy. Wilbur Mills came across this bridge one night. $10,000, or you could have said, as a lot of 4-year-olds do. Earlier today, a service, because today is different from people that have gotten tours. It's not generally wide open for tours for the public. People that got a tour of the Pentagon usually have a friend for you when you come in. 400 years of memorabilia. Stop burping, sister. Hey, Robin. Okay. To the left. This is stop 23. Walk today's front page, an exhibit that changes every morning. 2 states per case. On the left, lobster macaroni and cheese at Castle Grill. Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals. Nice job, buddy. There you go. One of the hubs of our subway, Chinatown, on the corner there. Gives you direct access to red, yellow, and green lines, connecting service to blue, silver, and orange. So we're approaching 25 up here. Inside this building, Portrait Gallery, the American Art Museum. The building was the patent office. It's the 4th oldest federal building in town.
The next one over.
The night of the assassination. Right now, we go right now.
Yeah, go right
now. It's really cool. Okay, and it takes us also across the street. Yes. Okay, that's what we want. Is it possible to join? We can't join this one though.
You can join it, but you always just think you're gonna finish off that.
Please touch. That's weird. So what do you do here? There's something I got maybe a top. Huh? Okay.
Then he became president.
What's his
Andrew
name?
Johnson showing me other pictures and stuff.
Attention to the president's box. We did not call that a booth for obvious reasons. Picture, lithograph of George Washington was placed there by the floors that night to represent the presidency. The original lithograph was taken out about a year ago for preservation. That one has a nick on the right side of the frame removed when he jumped, caught it with his spur. Tucked away on the right is the rocking chair where the president sat. The original rocking chair, story goes, was in the Smithsonian. It's now being put on display. It was in the basement, which doubled as a break room. And supposedly, some of the workers were apparently sitting in it during their lunch break. So one of the Ford widows, Henry Ford's widow, petitioned to get it back, got it back, and auctioned it off in 1929 for $2,400. Anybody know who the highest bidder was? Henry Ford Museum up in Dearborn, Michigan, right? Who said that? Okay, good. Are you guys from up there? Oh, no, okay. Yeah, so if you can bring that, whoever's in that neck of the woods, if you can bring that back in a U-Haul, we appreciate that. So next to it is a little cane bottom chair where Mary sat in her hoop skirt, sorry. Behind is the sofa where Major Rathbone sat and his fiancee Clara sat to his right. Younger couple, Mary liked to go to the theater and opera with Clara. This theater looks very similar to one of entertainment. There were 495 plays put on from when it was open until the president was shot. After the assassination, the Fords wanted to reopen it as an active theater. It was set to open July 10th, 3 days after the conspirators were hanged. Government was okay with it. The public would not stand for it. They sent threatening letters saying, if you dare open this as a place of amusement after our beloved president's been shot, we'll burn it to the ground. So by order of Secretary of War Stanton, the place was closed. Eventually, the government bought out the Fords for $100,000, and then the government turned this into a 3-story War Department office space. So there's pension records on this level, Surgeon General Library, and then an Army Medical Museum up on top. Eventually, it became mostly pension records. And in 1893, someone was excavating in the basement, not shoring it up correctly. And a 40-foot section started to buckle. Mendes papers flying through the air into the basement, killing 22 and injuring 68 in this same space. So what do you think people said about Fords after that? It was cursed. So Congress shut it down. Then it became a warehouse for all of its issues. 1932 became the Lincoln Museum. 1933 was given over to the National Park Service for preservation. And 103 years after the assassination, once again became an active theater as well as National Historic Site. So there are 4 plays put on each year here by the Fords Theater Society, who we're in partnership with. You're looking at the flooring. This is what remains of the set from The Wiz, which happened back until May 12th, and they're preparing for the next season. So we have a Christmas Carol coming up. Well, Born Yesterday, and then Christmas Carol, then 12 Angry Men, and then Into the Woods this year. So you never know what you're going to see here. Also, once a year, usually we have our annual gala. That's a big red carpet event. Politicians, celebrities come. It used to be televised. And the presidents of the United States come. And every president since Gerald Ford comes here to Ford's. And when the presidents come, they sit in seat 106, where this nice lady sitting here. That is where President Trump's rump was last year. And if he shows up again today, if you hear hail to the chief, you got to get out of there quick. Until then, she gets to be the honorary president for the rest of the day. Let's give her a big hand. So it's a very special place. It's a living memorial to Lincoln's love of the theater. I'm going to have a quick intermission, and then I shall begin. That every 80 years or so since its beginning, this nation comes to a crossroads where its core beliefs, Constitution, or the very future of its existence is put to the test. Our founding fathers risked their lives signing a document declaring independence from tyrannical rule. The Revolutionary War was followed and would culminate when General George Washington and the American and French forces would surround General Cornwallis and the British at Yorktown, Virginia, forcing them to surrender and sealing the deal of this new republic in 1781. 80 years later, the Civil War, brother battling brother, would begin in 1861. 80 years after that, America would enter into World War II in 1941, that date, which shall live in infamy. We shall see in the next 3 years if this pattern holds true, but I believe that every generation has had to pay a price for America's freedoms and blessings to continue. This place is a testimony to that cost. Abraham Lincoln will be one of many who have given their lives for something greater than themselves, that this nation might live. And he would bear more burdens than any before or since, and those burdens will be heavy, like the plight of slavery, to which the president said, "Yet if God wills that this war continue until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid for by another, drawn with the sword. Then, as it was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. And the blood will certainly flow. Battles like Antietam, Gettysburg, Chickamauga. Over 700,000 soldiers would die. This theater holds 655 seats. If you were to fill this theater with soldiers, that would be on average the amount that would be dying day after day after day for almost 4 years. And as Commander-in-Chief, those losses are mounting on the President's desk while he is battling his generals who are too passive in his opinion, not pursuing or attacking the enemy like he desired. In 1862, the President would suffer his greatest loss, the death of his beloved 11-year-old son Willie with typhoid. They were drinking bad water. This would crush the President. He said Willie was too good for this earth. Mary, she would not recover from this. She would distance herself from her family and the man that needs her support during the Civil War. So to escape all this stress, if possible, when he could, the President loved to come to the theater. He loved Shakespeare and comedies. And on one such occasion in 1863, he comes here to Ford's Theater to watch the play The Marble Harp, starring an acclaimed 24-year-old actor, John Wilkes Booth. Now Booth despises the President. He blames him for all the Southern problems. He thinks slavery is the greatest blessing that ever happened. So how dare the President try to abolish that and take away their property? He's even going to direct some of his more venomous lines that night toward the President in his box, to which someone in the President's party said, well, that looks like it's directed at you. And the President said, yes. He does look at me rather sharp, doesn't he? In 1864, Booth gathered co-conspirators and hatched a plot to kidnap the President, take him down to Richmond, and ransom him for the release of Confederate prisoners. They needed to reinstate the prisoner exchange that General Grant had stopped in order for the South to have a chance because they had less soldiers. After one failed attempt, when the President was not where they thought he was going to be, the plot stalled. 2 weeks later, Richmond fell. And a week after that, Robert E. Lee surrendered the Army of Northern Virginia to U.S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, signaling to most that the end of the war was in sight. So there's great celebrations here in Washington, grand illuminations, fireworks, and they want the President to give a speech. A day later, he puts together some words, and in his talk, he's going to talk about Reconstruction. And he says something very provocative for the time, that he believes that some black man should be given the right to vote. And guess who's in the audience? John Wilkes Booth turns to his co-conspirator, Lewis Powell, and says, I'll put him through. That's the last speech he shall ever make. 3 days later, the morning of April 14th, the President awakens unusually cheerful. Many people notice the change in his countenance. He's having a wonderful breakfast with his family. Robert, his son, is there, who was with Grant at Appomattox. The President wants to hear all the details of the surrender. Mary decides that they should go see the British comedy Our American Cousin that night at Ford's Theater, and they're going to invite General Grant and his wife Julia to attend. So they're going to send off a messenger to inform the Fords. Well, the Fords are elated because it's Good Friday, usually low visitation, about 300 or so, and General Grant's a huge draw in Washington. Rarely seen coming off these great victories, he is the toast of the town. So they're going to quickly advertise and decorate the box like so. Now, coming down to Ford's to pick up his mail about noon that day is the actor John Wilkes Booth. Harry Ford says to him, well, the old man in Grant's coming tonight. Well, that's interesting. So Booth's going to play it cool while he reads his mail on the porch. But what was once a kidnapping plot in his mind is turned to revenge and murder. The new plot to kill the President, Vice President Johnson, Secretary of State Seward, and Grant to try to destabilize the Union so the South can refortify, reorganize. Now Booth, he knows this play. He knows that there's one line that the audience is going to go absolutely wild over. He's going to coordinate all the attacks around that one line, which will happen about 10:15. Takes a piece of a music stand he finds in the horseshoe pit, places it in the hallway between the exterior and interior doors that leads to the President's box. He prepares his horses and weapons, writes a manifesto, and at 8 o'clock that night meets with his co-conspirators to finalize their plans. The President and his party would arrive at 8:30 that night, half hour late to the play, much to the dismay of the audience, without General Grant and his wife Julia, who decide to go visit their children in New Jersey. In their place would be Clara Harris, a friend of Mary's, and her fiance, Major Henry Rathbone. They're going to make their way up the spiral staircase in a round dress circle. As they do, the famous actress Laura Keane's going to spot the President. Not hard to spot him. He's 6'4", stovepipe hat takes him up to Shaquille O'Neal level. With a motion to the orchestra master to strike the hail to the chief. And it's good times in Washington. Standing ovation for the president and his party as they make their way around. The president smiles, tips his hat to the crowd, bows, and settles in the rocking chair to watch the play. Booth will arrive just after 9 o'clock. He's going to tap on the backstage door there. Next stagehand Ned Spangler to watch his skittish horse that will not be tied up. Well, Ned can't do it. He's got to move scenery around. So he gets peanuts. Boy that sells peanuts in the peanut gallery to do it for him. Now Booth wants to cross over the stage, but he can't. There's scenery in the way. So he goes down a trapdoor. Underneath the stage, crosses over, up another trapdoor, out the side to an alley, and around the front to the Star Saloon next door where he's going to drink his fill of whiskey and water. Liquid courage for his final cowardly performance. Just after 10 o'clock, he's seen going in and out of the lobby. He finally makes his move up the spiral staircase and around the dress circle. Now, as he does, some people start to recognize him, but it's not unusual for him to be in the theater. He's a very famous actor, makes over $20,000 a year at one point. As he's leaning against the wall, he's gauging where he's at in the play. He's probably relieved that there is no guard outside the president's box door. There was a Metropolitan Police officer by the name of John Parker assigned to take the president and his party from the outside into the box. He is either drinking in the Star Saloon or watching the play when the assassination happened. He is later brought up on dereliction of duty charges. He said that the president had relieved him. He can go watch the play. Well, that's plausible because we know security is more lax back then. But the problem with John Parker is that he'd been reprimanded 14 times before this for sleeping on duty, drinking on duty, going to brothels on duty, later fired for sleeping on duty. And to add insult to injury, after the assassination, guess who they sent over to guard Mary at the White House? The only person that Booth has to get past is White House Messenger Charles Forbes. He approaches Forbes and gives him what looks like a calling card. Now Booth, because he's like a young Johnny Depp at his time, for you young people, he is Channing Tatum famous. He's allowed to enter because of his fame. Once inside, he's going to take that piece of the music stand he put it against the door of the wall, barricade himself inside. So now there's only one door between him and the president's box. He approaches that door and looks through a bored hole where you can see the president sitting. Then he pulls out his .44 caliber single-shot Derringer. And then he's going to listen. Because alone on stage is the actor, Harry Hawk, and he's about to deliver that one line. Don't know the manners of good society, eh? Well, I guess I know enough to turn you inside out, old gal. You sockdologize an old man trap. Okay, so what's wrong with you folks? That was hilarious. Unlike you, the audience erupts in laughter as Booth's cue. He steps forward, point blank range, and fires into the back of the president's head. The ball enters 2 inches from his ear, went through the brain, and lies behind his right eye. The president slumped forward as though he's sleeping. The very last thing the president said, Mary was holding on to him. She said, what will Miss Harris think of me holding on to you, son? The president said, she won't think anything about it. Blue-gray cloud of smoke, the first one to see Booth Major Rathbone. He goes for him. Booth drops the Derringer, tries to stab Rathbone in the heart. Rathbone parried the blow, went in the bone up the shoulder. Then Booth tries to jump over the balustrade. As he did, Rathbone grabbed his coattail. That's going to trip up Booth. The spur gets caught in the trench guard flex, going to make the picture of George Washington come very hard and awkward to the stage. It's a 12-foot drop. That's where some people believe he broke his left fibula. It's either there or after he crossed over the Navy Yard Bridge, he said his horse had fallen on him. But I happen to have two things in common with Charles Booth. I have also broken my left fibula and the dashing good looks. But I cannot do what he did, which is get up quickly with that bloody dagger, comes to the center stage and yells, Sic semper tyrannis, which is Latin meaning, thus always the tyrants, referring to Brutus killing Julius Caesar. That detestable soul is calling our beloved president a tyrant. And now as he exits, whoever gets in his way is going to get slashed with that dagger, including the orchestra master. How does he reward peanuts for holding his horse? He's going to thump him in the forehead with the handle of the knife, kick him away, get on his horse, gallop down Baptist Alley towards the Navy Yard Bridge, soon launching the largest manhunt in the history of America. But back in the theater, there's confusion. Some people are actually applauding. They think it's part of the show. It's not to Major Rathbone. He goes, stop that man! Somebody stop that man! Screams from the box. And then there's a hush. When the people hear that the president's been shot, there is chaos and pandemonium in this place. There's a 6'5" Army major, tallest man in Washington, jumped over towards the pit to go after Booth. He almost caught him. By the time people realize it's too late, he's gone. First doctor into the box is 23 years old, 6 weeks out of medical school, Dr. Charles Leal. He's looking for a dagger wound. Major Rathbone wants the doctor to attend his wound. He's squirting blood everywhere. But pretty much the doctor said, no, you're good. And they went right to the president. They could not find the dagger wound on the president. And then the doctor looked into his eyes and he saw that it was a massive brain injury. He felt for the wound, found the wound, stuck his pinky in the wound to dislodge a large blood clot. That's going to help the president breathe and take the pressure off the brain. But it does not take the doctors long to realize this wound is mortal. There's no way for him to recover. So what are they going to do with the president? They can't have him die in the theaters, the devil's playpen. The saloon next door? That's not fitting. Dr. Leal overruled the carriage ride to the White House because the roads would be too harsh. So they're going to take him across, hoping to find a bed where they can treat him at one of the row houses. But the problem is now 1,700 people are pouring out to that street. At one point, soldiers and doctors holding up the president in the middle of the street, still not sure where to place him, removing a blood clot from his wound. When one of the tenants of the Peterson boarding house, Henry Safford, sees the chaos from his room, comes out to the scoop and he yells, "Bring him in here." So they took the president into the back room, placed him on the back bed, diagonally on the bed, his legs hanging out towards the wall. And then, it's just a matter of time. The president's very strong. Doctors feel most people would die in less than 2 hours with this kind of wound. When they took off his clothes to examine him, they were very impressed with his arms, his chest. He's 56 years old, 170-something pounds. But remember, he was a frontiersman, rail splitter, excellent wrestler in his youth, and chased vampires with the best of them. He lasted 9 hours with that wound. Dr. Leal would be honored for the way he cared for the president. He would hold the president's hand for hours, just in case the president, in his blindness, regained consciousness. He wanted to let him know that he had a friend. But the 16th president of the United States of America, Abraham Lincoln, he would not regain consciousness. He died at 7:22 Saturday morning. The next day was Easter Sunday, so preachers got the word. They compared the president to Moses. Now he brought the Union to the promised land, but was not able to enter himself. They wrapped the president in an American flag with stars over his face, 36 stars, put him in a pine box and took him to the White House for the autopsy, which took place in the Prince of Wales room. Dr. Curtis wrote, "As I lifted the brain out of the cavity of the skull, out through my fingers dropped this little black mass into the porcelain vase below, making a clattering noise. He said, there it was, no bigger than the end of my finger, dull, motionless, yet the cause of such mighty changes in the world's history as we may perhaps never realize." Everybody in the box, tragically affected by Blue Sack and that 1 ounce ball. Laura Keene, the actress, said she cradled the president's head in her lap, so she's going to be consoling Mary. And Major Rathbone still bleeding profusely. Him and his fiancée Clara are covered in his blood. So these are going to be the three people consoling Mary, taking her across the front parlor of the Peterson house. And of course, Mary had suffered great loss in the war. She lost brothers. Then Willie's death. And 6 years after her all in all died, and Tad Lincoln died at the age of 18 from consumption. That same year, Robert, the only son to live into adulthood, he would live to be 82, and he was at the dedication of the Lincoln Memorial in 1922. Him and Mary would be living in Chicago, and the Great Chicago Fire broke down. So eventually, Robert would put his mother Mary in Bellevue Place in an insane asylum for the rich. And do mothers like it when their children put them in insane asylums? They really don't, kids, so try not to do that at home. They'll have a distant relationship until she dies. Robert went on to be Secretary of War. He was with President Garfield when he was assassinated, arriving at the train station up in Buffalo for the expo when President McKinley was assassinated. The first three presidents assassinated in American history Robert was associated with, and presidents after that said, let's unfriend Robert. Major Rathbone, still bleeding from that wound from Booth. He's going to pass out from blood loss from that wound in the hallway of the Peterson house. If you're going to get wounded, try not to get wounded around a wounded president. He was taken to his home and recovered physically, but emotionally, he too would not do well from that night forward. He's also a veteran of Antietam in Fredericksburg. Him and Clara married. They had kids, moved to Germany where he was a consul for the government. More and more he deteriorated. He blamed himself for what happened that night. Started to hear voices coming from behind pictures. She was worried he's going to take his own life. He's worried she's going to take the kids and leave him. And just before Christmas, he went after the kids, most likely to harm them. She calmly got him away from the kids, told the governors, keep the kids inside, took him into the master bedroom, where he's pretty much going to reenact what happened in the box. He took a gun and shot Clara. A knife and stabbed her, then stabbed himself 5 times in the chest and the arm. She died, he lived, and then was put in an asylum for the criminally insane, where he died 28 years later, 1911, in Germany. The kids would survive. One became Congressman Henry Rathbone Jr. here in Washington, introduced a bill to help Ford's Theater become a museum in 1932. They also had a distant cousin, you might have heard of, Basil Rathbone, who's the Sherlock Holmes in the movies. John Wilkes Booth would not escape justice for this trail of tragedies. And these 12 days after he leaves stage right at Ford's, he's tracked down to a tobacco barn near Port Royal, Virginia, surrounded by 24 Union cavalry. Now, Booth, he has an ego, this guy. He knows if he surrenders, he'll be hanged like a common criminal. He says, I have too great a soul for that. So he challenges the cavalry to move back 50 paces. He'll come out and fight them. No deal. They don't want to kill Booth. They want to put him on trial and see how far this conspiracy goes in the Confederacy. So his request is denied. After his co-conspirator, David Harold's allowed to surrender, Detective Conger fires the barn to flush Booth out. And now it's just Booth in the middle of the burning barn. And looking through one of the slats of the barn is one of the most fascinating people you're ever going to hear about, Sergeant Austin Corbett, who before he was a soldier was a hatter, which means he was breathing in the mercury fumes they used to cure the felt hats, which made you mad as a hatter. He said he could see Booth, but was determined not to shoot him unless Booth made a demonstration to hurt someone. Well, that demonstration came, Corbett says, when Booth raised his Spencer carbine towards one of the soldiers, Boston fired, aiming for Booth's shoulder, but he said Booth must have stooped. He hit him just below the skull, very similar to where Booth shot the president, severed Booth's spinal column. He was paralyzed from the neck down. They dragged him out of the burning barn to under a tree, and he could only whisper, and he said, tell mother, I died for my country. And the barn's getting hot, so they carried him across to the Garrett's farmhouse porch. His last request would be that they raise his hands so that he could see them, which they did. And he said, useless. Useless. He might have been saying Lucy, that was his girlfriend. No, it was definitely useless. And useless. His last word would sum up his final act because he did not receive the glory and honor like he thought he would get. Killing Abraham Lincoln would be the worst thing that could have happened for the South. Even Jefferson Davis said that 10 years after the war. Because with malice towards none, with charity for all, they would lose their would-be friend in Reconstruction. And the actor Booth, well, he's going to receive very negative reviews on TripAdvisor for his final performance. Both the president and Booth had premonitions of their deaths. John Wilkes Booth, when he went to boarding school in his youth, went to a gypsy fortune teller, read his palm. She said, I wish I had never seen his hand. She said, you shall have a grand but short life with a bad ending. This haunted Booth. He carried it with him. The president said, this war has eaten my life out. I have the strong impression I shall not live to see its end. And upon leaving the White House the night of April 14th to come to Ford's, he was with his other bodyguard, William Crook, who had urged him not to go to the theater and to have more security, but the president said no. He promised Mary he would go. Without exception, every night before, he would turn to William and say, good night, Crook. But on that night, and that night only, he turned to him and said, goodbye, Crook. Both men would die, but one who was seeking glory and honor would die in shame and contempt, while the other, well, there's a scripture that says the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. Some lights flicker brightest during the darkest hour. Certainly on the night of April 14th, there were lights. Dr. Charles Leo, Henry Safford, and others. And during the darkest period of American history, the Civil War, there were also great lights. Clara Barton, Frederick Douglass, and that great light, which was Abraham Lincoln, which could not be extinguished that damp and foggy night of April 14th, it illuminates to this day. This city, Washington, has given itself over to monuments and memorials to honor great men and women who were lights during their generation's darkest hour. Perhaps one or more of you will arise and shine in these coming years and be called upon to help preserve the very freedoms and liberties that we the people so cherish. And finally, in the words of another man who persevered so that the first permanent English colony of Jamestown would not fail, Captain John Smith, who said, "Everything of worth is found full of difficulties." I'm sure that Abraham Lincoln would agree. Thanks, folks.
Oh, I don't know what you want me to do.
Penny.
Yep. I know. No, thank you.
A little rebellion.
Never heard anybody? Oh.
Tell you? The future or whatever.
Was it because it was just really close? Whose house?
Anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Whose house?
This was the Petersons. They were a German immigrant family. They operated a boarding house out of here. The reason why they brought them in here, they didn't want to die in the theater across the streets.
Right.
They considered that not a great place for the president to die, bad reputation to die there. So they brought them onto the street. The doctor who was attending from Charlottesville decided there was no place else to bring them. White House was too far. So they were looking at these boarding houses and started knocking down the doors. Henry Safford, who's staying upstairs, he hears noise. He goes outside and he sees what happened. For other firms who were
The baddie was out or something?
Mm-hmm. That's where he died.
Look, Mom. Look at me.
Okay.
I'll let him look at me.
So here's a picture here. Where'd everybody go? Did the elevator?
Yeah, you gotta take the elevator.
Lincoln's funeral, coffin handle, mourning ribbons, pressed flowers.
Look at the stars from the top.
He died age 49. I said so. Back then.
So we walk past it.
Yeah, look at their handcuffs. That's so sad. And 40 years later,
Wait! It gets better.
Bathroom in it? Oh, my feet.
I guess they put a hood on it when they drug him in.